There's a moment most people don't notice when it happens. You're in the middle of a conversation, maybe with a coworker, maybe with someone you just met, and a question comes up. Something you used to know, something that used to live in your head like furniture. And instead of reaching for the answer, your hand moves to your phone. You type, you read, you respond. And nobody says anything, because everyone does it now. But here's what's strange. It's not just that you looked it up, it's that afterward you felt nothing. No friction, no embarrassment, not even awareness that something shifted. You just moved on. That moment, that frictionless, barely noticed moment, is where this story actually begins. Most people, when they talk about AI dependency, frame it as a technology conversation. They talk about tools, productivity, efficiency, the future of work. And that framing makes it easy to dismiss. Because if it's just about tools, then you're in control. You're the one holding the tool. You put it down when you're done. But that's not what's actually happening inside your brain. And that gap between what you believe about your relationship with AI and what's neurologically true is one of the most important things nobody is talking about clearly. Here's where the science gets uncomfortable. Your brain is not a fixed machine. It's adaptive. It's constantly reorganizing itself based on what you use, what you repeat, and what you stop needing to do. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. And for most of human history, it's been a survival advantage. Your brain trims what's unnecessary and strengthens what gets used. It's efficient. It's elegant. But neuroplasticity is also completely indifferent to your well-being. It doesn't know the difference between a skill you're developing and a skill you're quietly outsourcing. It just responds to behavior. And when you repeatedly outsource a cognitive task, retrieving information, forming an argument, solving a problem, even composing a sentence, your brain begins to treat that neural pathway the way it treats anything unused. It starts to let it thin. There's a concept in cognitive science called cognitive offloading. It describes the way humans have always used external tools to carry mental weight, writing things down, using maps, building calendars. This is normal. This is ancient. The problem isn't offloading itself. The problem is what happens when the tool you're offloading to is faster than thought, more articulate than memory, and available every second of every day. Because at that point, the offloading never stops. There's no natural pause. No moment where the tool is unavailable and your brain is forced to pick the weight back up. The outsourcing becomes the default, and defaults, when repeated long enough, become identity. Think about what you've already quietly handed over. Not dramatically, not in one decision, just gradually, the way water shapes stone. 2 years ago, you might have sat with a difficult email for 20 minutes, searching yourself for the right words. Now you describe the situation to an AI and reshape what it gives you. The end result looks like you, it sounds like you, but the process of finding those words, the cognitive friction, the reaching, the struggle that actually builds linguistic and emotional fluency, that process is now skipped. 6 months ago, you might have worked through a confusing decision by talking to a friend, or sitting quietly, or sleeping on it. Now you open a chat window and type out your situation and receive a structured, balanced, thoughtful response in 11 seconds. And the response is good. That's what makes this so difficult to resist. The tool is genuinely helpful. That's not the danger. The danger is that every time the tool is helpful, your brain records, "I don't need to do that part myself." There's a psychological phenomenon called the Google effect, identified by cognitive psychologist Betsy Sparrow and her team at Columbia University. Their research found that when people know information is accessible online, they don't try to remember it. The brain, efficiently, decides it doesn't need to store what it can retrieve. The availability of the tool changed how memory was encoded, not after the fact, but in the moment of learning. That study was published in 2011, before large language models, before AI that can think through problems, generate creative work, write code, analyze your emotions, and suggest what you should say to your mother. Extend that finding to what AI can do now and sit with what it implies. It's not just that you'll remember less, it's that you may gradually lose confidence in your own cognition, your ability to reason through hard things, to tolerate ambiguity, to sit with a question long enough for your own insight to surface. Because insight requires patience. It requires the discomfort of not knowing, and AI eliminates that discomfort almost instantly. What disappears quietly, without announcement, is the tolerance for the in-between. the mental space where you don't yet have the answer, where you're turning something over, feeling it out, letting your mind wander towards a conclusion. That space used to be where your best thinking happened, and it's being replaced, moment by moment, with immediate resolution. This is where it becomes deeply personal, and this is where most conversations about AI never go.
The human mind doesn't just think, it forms identity through thinking. The way you solve problems, the way you express yourself, the particular shape of how you process the world, these aren't just cognitive functions. They're who you are. They're what makes your ideas yours. They're what gives you a sense of competence, of self-trust, of groundedness. When those processes are steadily offloaded, not ripped away, but slowly, gently, conveniently replaced, something underneath starts to shift. Psychologists who study self-efficacy, a concept developed by Bandura, describe it as your belief in your own ability to execute. And self-efficacy doesn't come from success alone. It comes specifically from the experience of struggling and then succeeding, from sitting in the difficulty, from your brain registering, I did that. I figured that out. When AI handles the struggle for you, reliably, beautifully, immediately, that registration doesn't happen. The result is there, but the inner experience of capability isn't built. And over time, quietly, you may start to feel like you need the tool not just for convenience, but for confidence. Because without it, you don't quite trust yourself to produce what you used to produce alone. That's not laziness, that's not weakness, that's a nervous system adapting to its environment, exactly as it was designed to do. Here's the part that almost no one talks about. AI dependency isn't going to feel like addiction. It's not going to feel dramatic. There's no crash, no craving, no obvious moment where you realize you've crossed a line. It's going to feel like efficiency. It's going to feel like clarity. It's going to feel, honestly, like growth, because the outputs get better and better, and you stop noticing how little of the internal process is yours anymore. This is what makes it different from almost every other dependency pattern in human history. The thing you're becoming dependent on makes you look more capable from the outside. At the exact same moment, it may be quietly eroding something on the inside. And the inside is where you actually live. None of this means AI is something to fear or reject. That framing would be as simplistic as saying fire is dangerous and therefore we shouldn't cook with it. The question was never whether to use the tool. The question is whether you remain the person who could exist without it. There's a distinction worth drawing here between using AI as an amplifier and using it as a replacement. An amplifier takes your thinking and makes it more powerful. A replacement does the thinking so you don't have to. The first builds you. The second, over time, may slowly unmake you. The uncomfortable truth is that this line is very easy to cross and almost impossible to feel yourself crossing because nothing hurts, nothing signals the shift. The transition from using AI to needing AI produces no warning, no friction, no obvious before and after. It happens in the silence between one version of you and the next. And by the time most people notice, they've already stopped trusting the version that existed before. If you want to stay on the right side of that line, there's one practice that matters more than any other. Deliberate friction. Before you open the AI, do the thing yourself first. Write the rough draft. Think through the problem. Sit in the discomfort for 10 minutes. Let yourself struggle without immediately solving the struggle. Not because the AI answer isn't good, but because the struggle is where your cognitive muscle actually lives. After that, use the tool however you want. Compare, refine, expand. But make sure your brain had to work first. And when you catch yourself reaching for AI out of avoidance rather than efficiency, when the real reason you're opening that window is because the blank page feels uncomfortable, or the decision feels heavy, or you don't want to sit with the uncertainty, notice that, name it, and stay in the discomfort for just a few more minutes before you reach for the shortcut. It sounds almost too simple, but the research on skill maintenance is clear. What you don't practice, you lose, and what you practice, even imperfectly, you keep. The goal isn't to be anti-AI. The goal is to make sure that 5 years from now, when you sit down without any tools at all, you still recognize the person doing the thinking. Because here's the thing. The world is going to get better at making you comfortable, better at removing friction, better at anticipating your needs and filling every gap before you even notice the gap is there. And comfort, when it's constant and complete, has a strange way of making people smaller. Not miserable, not obviously diminished, just quieter inside, less certain of their own voice, less willing to trust their own instincts, reaching, without realizing it, for something outside themselves to confirm what they think, feel, and know. The most important relationship you have isn't with any tool,
It's with your own mind. And that relationship, like every real relationship, requires showing up for it, even when something easier is available, especially then. If this landed somewhere real for you, there's something else worth exploring about how modern environments are quietly reshaping not just how you think, but what you want, what you feel, and who you believe yourself to be. It goes deeper than you might expect.